So today I wanted to go through 12 of my favorite short story collections and anthologies. I actually own all of these on my shelves, which should just really tell you how much I love them. I don't own every favorite book I own, but a lot of these I read before I physically owned them, and then I found them in the wild and I picked them up. And yeah, and like if you've been following my channel for years, this is a very unsurprising video. But I think I realized I didn't really have a video that was just like my favorite short story collections and anthologies. And I really do value them, especially right now. I'm in my kind of own personal short story renaissance of really, like, those have been my hits lately. Those are the things that I've been really loving. So figured I'd highlight them. In case you're looking to dip your toes in any, I got a lot of genres here. Horror, sci-fi, literary. I don't know if I really have any fantasy. I feel like fantasy short stories, they obviously exist, but I haven't found a collection or anthology that sings to me. I've definitely read a few, but they haven't been like favorites. So let's start with a classic. There's just no particular order. I mean, I guess the order is smallest book to largest book because that's how the stack worked. And that's how we're working today with the headaches that I just perpetually have on in the background because it's a stormy August, everybody. But we'll start with Bloodchild by Octavia Butler. I love this edition for multiple reasons. One, I just think it looks so sleek. I think this is, and I bought this in New York City. I remember I was in Brooklyn. They were having a indie bookstore event outside of the library in Brooklyn, New York. And I finally bought this because I hadn't had a copy yet. And this is a really fun short story collection because not only do you get the fantastic stories of Octavia Butler, which are really a good collection of what you're going to find in her long works. I have a whole Octavia Butler video if you want to know my in-depth thoughts about her works and the themes she's exploring. But I think she dabbles on a lot of what she tests in her novels in these short works. And at the end of each story, she has notes. Let me see if I can find an example here. But yeah, so there's an afterword at the end of each story. And so you really get an insight into what she was doing at the time, what she thought she was playing with, even though, of course, sometimes how you interpret something is going to be different from the author's doing. And yeah, it was really cool. This whole collection is absolutely stellar. One of the best things I read from Butler. The titular story is chilling and messed up and uncomfortable and just quintessential Butler, in my opinion. I feel like most people don't get to her truly uncomfortable works. Like, she has dark works, like Parable of the Sower is, of course, dark. Same with Parable of the Talents, same with Kindred. But if that's all you've read, she gets even more unsettling and uncomfortable. And I think this is a good collection to dip your toes in that if you want to see how into the sci-fi horrorness of it all she dips into. And now the next two I'll talk about back to back because I love them for the same reasons. And this is truly like Nisi Shaw, man. Like, what an editor. But this is New Sons Volume 1 and New Sons Volume 2. I love this, like, Volume 1, Volume 2 set so much for multiple reasons. One, look at this cover. Like, I'm sorry, how could you not want to own this on your shelf? The colors just pop, they come together, it's stunning. I'll just put up, I guess, a standalone picture. But I used to own, actually I still own, the original trade paperback printing of New Sons Volume 1. And then New Sons Volume 2 didn't come out in like as large of a format, it only came out in like a shorter trade paperback. And so then I bought New Sons Volume 1 in that shorter format when I found it in Toronto. So yeah, both of these I bought, I believe, well, New Sons Volume 2 I might have not bought in Toronto, but New Sons Volume 1, this edition, I bought in Toronto at Baka Phoenix Bookstore, which is a sci-fi, fantasy, specialty bookstore. Highly recommend if you ever make it out there. Like, there's a lot of good bookstores in Toronto, but that's easily where I spend all my money every time I go. So these are impressive to me, though, because they're anthologies. So by definition, not everything can be a hit. Like, we're having so many different stories from different voices. It's like almost to the benefit of an anthology for them to not all hit the same way. But the way that Nisi Shaw edits and picks out and curates the stories, they're all so incredibly engaging. And, like, they have some authors that, like, you're going to want to read from, like Rebecca Roanhorse and stuff like that. I can't forget who else is in this first one. But, like, they actually are picking from people who specialize in, like, short stories for magazines and things like that. Tobias Buckle's in here. Karen Lawachi's in here. There's a Sylvia Moreno-Garcia. But, like, for the most part, when you look through this, you're going to see some authors you recognize, like Darcy Little Badger. But it's mostly going to be new names to you, but you shouldn't be scared of that because these new names to you are actually incredibly good at short story works. In New Sons 2, we have a Tananari Du. I remember that one. There is a Nevo. We've got a John Chu, who I love his short works. There's a Malka Olden here. There's a Christopher Gadwell. I mean, these are just such stunning anthologies. So if you're looking to dip your toes in and you don't know the style you would like of a sci-fi short story, and if you're looking to maybe diversify your reading, the New Sons collection's is a fantastic project. Ooh, this next one, this is like OG Angela. This is like 2020 BookTube Angela. And that is Her Body and Other Parties. I remember I picked this up for one reason, and one reason only, because in 2020, I was desperately trying to find any speculative fiction by Latin American authors. Any of them. And at that point, I'd already read, I think Gods of Jade and Shadow had come out in 2019. This is before Mexican Gothic is out, but obviously I read it that year as well. And then the next one I could find, and like I asked my bookstore, is Carmen Maria Machado. Now, I wouldn't say this is your standard speculative fare, but it is like horror. It's literary horror. Like some stories are just straight up unsettling folklore ghost stories. But some of them are also like, okay, you are a writer just doing a fever dream story because that's how you feel. Like the longest story in here is called like, I can't even remember. It's like Especially Heinous, yes, which is just synopses of different Law and Order SVU episodes, but it's like gets more and more deranged as you go. The title of this work is so good. I've read this twice. I love this short story collection, Her Body and Other Parties. It's about a relationship of a woman to her body, other people to that body. That theme is consistent. How we explore that theme changes. That's my favorite thing about a solid collection. In reality, there's never been a 5-star collection where every story's been 5 stars. But what turns a 4.5-star collection into a 5-star collection is that cohesiveness where I just really appreciate the whole of the work. So I highly recommend this. And if you've been curious about her memoir, reading her memoir in close conjunction with this is actually very revealing as well, I found. We'll talk about the next two together as well because they are the same author, and that is my Ted Chiang collections. I love these, by the way. These are the UK Picador edition. So this is Story of Your Life and Others. I'm sorry, this is such a stunning cover. Even I can get over the fact that the binding doesn't like me just because this is so pretty. And then we have Exhalation by Ted Chiang, which if you've read the Exhalation story, this is what a cover. I'll just put up Exhalation because, hot take, that's my favorite of the two collections, but they're both 5 stars. So, what do you want? Ted Chiang, to my knowledge, only writes short works. I don't believe we have a novel. I don't believe we have a novella. He'll occasionally write a nonfiction piece in an editorial, but for the most part, he lets it cook, and he just throws out these. These are it. These are the 2 collections of short stories that we have from this man. And they're almost all complete bangers. Some of them hit more for me than others. Story of Your Life and Others going to have some more religious themes laced in with some of the sci-fi. Exhalation is definitely more strongly grounded in the science fiction. Its discussion throughout about entropy, is so good. And especially, so I don't know what his background is with science, but as someone who's a physicist, when he chooses to incorporate physics, foundational Newtonian physics, quantum physics, things that you learn in a physics classroom, he does it correctly and messes with it in ways that I think are poignant, are fun, are and they resonate with me as someone who's that's so I don't like flash fiction that much, but there's a flash fiction story in Exhalation that is truly about entropy And I just love it so much. And some of them are more like your straightforward golden age of sci-fi deduction. But a lot of them have a lot of heart. There's one that's called The Life Cycle of Software Objects. And it's basically like what happens to your Neopets or Digimons or, Tamagotchis, like whatever digital pet you had after the software is outdated, after you stop taking care of them. I love that story. I've read it twice, and I'm not good at reading long things in one sitting. And by long, I mean anything over 100 pages. I'm not good at that. Both times in one sitting. Oh, adore it. I adore those stories. So Ted Chiang was also OG Angela. I actually only read Exhalation because Ryan bought it in Portland, Maine for my birthday in 2019 for himself and was enjoying it, so I just picked it up. Like, in 2020 is when I started dabbling in short stories, and I believe Exhalation and Her Body and Other Parties were my first two. I guess I'd have to go back into the archives. I do have, like, the short stories I read that year video in a playlist somewhere, but that's how my memory is working. Ooh, this next one's really good. Lately, I get all my new short story collection recommendations from the Ursula K. Le Guin Award in Fiction. Because Ursula K. Le Guin wrote a lot of short fiction, so they tend to like to highlight submissions for that. This is such a good one. This is Drinking from Graveyard Wells. So good. I ended up convincing my bookstore to buy it, and then I saw the copy and was like, well, I need it. So you bought it for the short, and I'm also buying it for my collection. If you've ever wanted to read speculative fiction from an author from Zimbabwe, right here, they're all great. They're all incredibly engaging. This author's ability to draw you into a story is so good. I want to reread it because it's been a while. I remember there's one in here about origin of a rideshare app a la Lyft and stuff like that. There's like a zombie apocalypse one. It's so good. And like, they're not that long. So for example, this is like a 145 page book and there's like 15 stories in it. And like, I think I like that. A lot of times when someone's a short fiction author, the story is as long as it needs to be. A lot of times when you take an author who writes longer works as like their craft, they're used to all of the space you have in a novel. And they forget that like in short fiction, there's a bit of a different art to it. There's a bit of a different focus you're supposed to take, and I felt the focus here. I never felt like I needed buy-in. I was always just like, yes, take me on the journey. And like, it's so good. It's such a swimming with her. I'm just remembering this buddy read. So I read this with friends. I read this with Kristen and Shannon. And we have very different tastes. Whenever we buddy read, it's very rare that all three of us love a thing. And all three of us loved this thing. We have another anthology. I don't have many anthologies on my list because anthologies are even harder than collections to become favorites, but Taaqtumi did it. This is a horror anthology, Arctic horror stories from many indigenous tribes up north, and yeah, you want creepy stories? These are some creepy stories. I still remember one, and they're the type of creepy stories that they don't try to explain themselves. They do not give you a resolution. That's that type of horror, which I think works really well for short stories. And I found this in the wild at an Indigo in Canada, in Toronto. And I was like, oh my God, I need this. I had never seen this in the wild before. I had such a good time reading this, and so I bought it. Next up is actually the newest contender for this list. And actually probably the reason I'm making this list, because like, it reminded me of my love of short stories, and getting a new 5-star is always just like so fun. And that is Uncertain Suns and Other Stories by Thomas Ha. This cover really gives you the vibe. It is unsettling, it is horrific, dystopian sci-fi stories. A lot of heart though. These stories have been written since 2023, so you cannot escape the fact that this author, Thomas Ha, he is living in 2023 to now, writing these stories. He is a parent, and that bleeds through into the pages. How do you cope with a world when you are a parent and the world's on fire? The world's treating people who are differently with prejudice. Like, how does that become stories? And they're all engaging. They're all thematically poignant. There's a lot of discussion about survival and passivity and when to push from different angles. You can tell that's a thing he's thinking about a lot. And like when I finished this collection, I was just like, dang. Because the novelette or novella, I can't tell, I don't know how long it is, but the last story, the titular story, really brings it all together. And then I went and I read the foreword, because I never read a foreword first, and I was just like, dang, this is so good. This is one of those ones, again, where it's like, did I give 5 stars to every short story in here? No, but did it cohesively hit me? Yes. And also, again, it was just such a win. I enjoyed reading a story from this every night. Like, I was excited to have my little short story time every evening with Thomas Ha. Next up is an anthology that I love, an anthology that led to a sci-fi recommendation video I made earlier this year. And that is We Will Rise Again, edited by Karen Lord, Annalee Newitz, and Malka Older, amazing individuals. And this project of short stories and essays, it's so good. And like its theme resonates with me. Its theme is about, it's not the opposite of Uncertain Suns. Uncertain Suns is not like so pessimistic. It's troubled. This is a very troubled book. We Will Rise Again is like, okay, so the world is, and how can it be different? What can that look like? You know, it's not necessarily super optimistic or super positive leaning, but it's taking a lot of unique voices and asking these authors, you know, what gives you strength? What's a way to imagine something better? And I felt how much I needed this in my bones when I read this anthology. So again, do I love every work in here? No, but I loved the interspacing of stories and essays and how the essays would be put right next to the stories that they would inform. Like, this is a mixtape curated with such care. So yeah, like, I think one of the essays is N.K. Jemisin talking about Janelle Monáe. Amazing. Like, fantastic. Is this a cheat? This might be a cheat. Don't care. Arboreality. These are interconnected short stories. There's like 7 of them. And you go through 100 years on Vancouver Island, where you basically have these climate events that decimate the land and isolate it, put people into a medieval dark age. And it's about how society survives, what it retains, what it loses. What does it look like 100 years after that moment? And yeah, I read it twice. I've loved it both times. I've loved its focus on those things. So yeah. And then last up, I mean, honestly, it feels good to end with this one because, like, gosh, I don't know if this one's my favorite, but it's a top fiver. It's a top fiver, and that is The Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu. And I'm actually so excited because he has another collection coming out this year, within a month or so. But this is my favorite. I own Hidden Girls and Other Stories. That one's good. It's very good, but it's not this one. This one, like, I've read The Paper Menagerie, the titular one, like, multiple times. If you don't have an emotion, you don't have to cry, but if you don't have an emotion while reading that Paper Menagerie, you have lived a blessed life or something. Like, having contentious relationships with the people who raise you, existing in a world with expectations of who you are, and judging your family circumstances. That Paper Menagerie story just hits. Oh, it's so good. Also, you can tell that he is inspired by this. So there is a story in here near the end, I believe, called, where is it? Oh, this also has story notes, by the way. Liking What You See, a documentary. I think it has to do with how people can change their looks or something like that. I can't remember. It's been 5 years since I've read it. And I'm actually due for a reread, but I'm actually rereading Exhalation soon for a book club. But in this one, there's a documentary type story at the end. And he even says that he was inspired by the format of that documentary story. The actual stories are very different. This one has to do with what if we had the technology to go back into the past to observe a moment, but once you observe that moment, no one else can ever observe it again. And there's, he's really good at interlacing moments in history that are not as well known in the West. And we generally know a lot about different World War II atrocities, but there are some that even now governments do not own up to. And so in particular, there was one that he was focusing on in Japan in that story and that piece of technology. I forget what that story was called. I wonder if I can find it easily at the front of this. Oh, awesome. I got it signed when I met him. I do have an interview with Ken Liu, and we do talk about a lot of his stories and his Dandelion Dynasty. If you ever want to see it, it's my favorite. Well, I love all my interviews. It was my first one, though, so I'm allowed to be like, that one's special. It's called The Man Who Ended History. Yeah. And, like, there's some historical, fantastical ones. There's so many on language. Oh, the first one, The Bookmaking Habits of Select Species. Anyways, this is a fantastic collection. Highly recommend. Obviously, all of these are all favorites of mine. So hopefully there's something in there. You know, if I really had to say what is the best beginner collection, I mean, if you like horror, I actually do think like Uncertain Suns and Other Stories. If you like sci-fi more, I don't think you can go wrong with Ken Liu or Ted Chiang for starting with science fiction. But also, I just think all of these are really good, really solid. They're really not going to overstay their welcome, I feel. I don't have a lot of patience sometimes. I think sometimes a big hallmark of, is a short story good, is, did I want to keep reading it? It's like, a short story is supposed to be the length of a TV show. And, you know, a good TV show, I'm not on my phone scrolling. I want to watch that TV show. And that's the feeling I want when I'm reading a short story. And all of these had that element in there somewhere. What are collections and anthologies you would recommend to me based off this slate? What are your favorites? And if you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, let's leave a tiger. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.